There is something invisible, yet its impact cuts deeply. Words. A single compliment can lift the heart for an entire day. A single criticism can weigh on the mind for weeks. A false accusation can steal someone's trust in themselves for a long time. Words never touch the skin, yet they make the heart ache. They carry no blade, yet they leave wounds. Many people do not fall because of hardship, but because they hear too much, hold too long, and slowly turn outer sounds into inner noise. Bodhidharma once reminded us that practicing in the midst of life does not mean escaping people's opinions, but learning to keep the mind from being led by them. The moment we cling to others' words, our mind is no longer our own. We begin to live like a leaf. Praised by the wind, we rise. Blamed by the wind, we fall. We start measuring our worth by other people's mouths, and no matter whether they are right or wrong, we become exhausted. Some words seem light, yet they take root. They repeat themselves and turn into an inner voice that doubts, blames, and torments us. Nothing outside may have changed. Family, work, life remain the same, but the mind shifts, clouded by a single sentence that stayed too long. From there, we live seeking approval, love with fear of judgment, and act kindly while anxiously waiting to see what others will say. Bodhidharma did not teach us to block our ears. He taught us something subtler. Hear, but do not cling. Praise is only wind. Blame is only wind. Wind changes with moods and interests. Sweet today, harsh tomorrow. If we hand our life's boat to the wind, it will overturn again and again. True practice is to steady the mind, so praise does not inflate it and blame does not diminish it. When the mind stands still amid countless voices, life naturally softens. This is not numbness, it is freedom. Freedom from being controlled by invisible voices that have carried us for years. If words have been wearing you down, pause for a moment, breathe gently, and ask yourself, is what they said truly who I am, or just a gust passing through? Bodhidharma looked deeply into this truth. He did not say that words are evil, nor did he teach people to hide from public opinion. He pointed to something very human. Words do not kill immediately. But when they are allowed to stay too long in the mind, they slowly destroy peace, erode trust, and take away a person's ability to live naturally and freely. At first, there is only a faint sadness, then a small doubt, then self-blame. Over time, it hardens into a familiar belief. I am not good enough, not capable enough, not worthy enough. Some words pass through the ears lightly, yet become heavy once they enter the heart. Not because they are powerful, but because they strike a weakness that already exists. Fear of abandonment aches at cold words. Lack of confidence aches at criticism. The habit of pleasing others aches at disapproval. Words are only the spark. The fuel has been stored inside for a long time. Bodhidharma taught that most suffering does not come from circumstances, but from how we receive them. The same sentence can be forgotten by one person and carried home by another, placed on the table, on the bed, even into sleep. The speaker may say it once, but the listener repeats it hundreds of times in their mind, deepening the wound each time. We often think we suffer because others speak harshly, yet if we do not hold on, those words dissolve like wind. Only when we believe them, keep them, and replay them do they gain a place to live. There is a tiring way of living by what the ears hear. One voice says you are wrong, another says you are lacking, another tells you what you must be to be enough. Slowly, the mind loses its center, spinning with outside opinions. Even rest feels uneasy. Joy feels restrained, because one is always waiting for judgment. Seeing this, Bodhidharma reminded us that living in the world means learning to guard the mind, not by force, but by discernment. To guard the mind is to know what to let in and what to leave outside. Not every word deserves a place in the heart. A mind without choice is like a house with no door. Any passerby can throw something inside. Words destroy slowly because they disconnect us from our true nature. When we listen too much, we stop asking what we truly feel and start living through others' eyes. Realizing this is the first step back to peace. Hearing, but not carrying. Learning, but not imprisoning the heart with words that were never meant to stay. Bodhidharma once pointed to something subtle that many people live their whole lives without noticing. The same words can land in two very different ways. One person hears them and lets them rest where they fell. Another carries them home, presses them to the chest, and relives the pain day after day. It isn't that speech is stronger for one and weaker for another. It's that our way of listening is different. Some hear like water touching the hand, cool, then gone. Others hear like a thorn in the heart. The more they move, the more it hurts. In ordinary life, much suffering begins right here. We are not always hurt by what happened, but by what gets said around what happened. A single remark may be brief, yet inside the mind it stretches, gathers assumptions, repeats itself. First we hear, then we think, then we blame ourselves, until we begin to doubt our own worth. Eventually, we are no longer living with the event. We are living with the sentence about the event. Bodhidharma did not say, "Don't listen." He said the problem is whether words stop at the ear or are allowed to sink into the heart. At the ear, they are only sound. In the heart, they gain authority. They can steer moods, shape behavior, even tint the way we see our entire life. So the practitioner in the middle of the world is not someone who avoids voices, but someone who keeps a healthy distance between what is heard and what is believed. He offered a small step that can quietly change everything. Pause for one breath. No arguing, no explaining, no rushing to defend yourself. Just stop. Inhale slowly, exhale slowly, and look at what has arisen inside. Is it sadness, shame, anger, or the fear of being judged? When you can name the feeling, the words immediately lose some of their grip, because you are no longer trapped in reflex, but returning to awareness. And there is a plain truth beneath it all. Many words hurt not because of their content, but because we have placed our happiness in a fragile place. If we need praise to feel alive, a critique will sting. If we are unsure of our value, any opinion can feel like a needle. Bodhidharma's remedy is not to fix other people's mouths, but to strengthen our own mind. When the mind is steady, words become information, kept if they help us grow, released if they are only passing weather. Not every sentence deserves a reaction, and not every voice deserves a room in the heart. Bodhidharma once stressed that anyone walking the path in the middle of ordinary life must learn to guard the gate of the heart, not letting just anyone come and go, not turning every remark into a long-term guest. When you can keep that gate, the inner world begins to settle. And only when the mind is settled can you truly hear what is useful and what is merely noise. If you feel easily wounded by words, don't rush to call yourself weak. It may simply mean you haven't learned the art of listening well. From today, try something small. Whenever a sentence stirs you, don't react at once. Pause for a single beat, look straight at the feeling and ask, do I really need to carry this with me? If not, let it leave gently, like water slipping off the hand, like wind passing an open porch. Many people think only criticism hurts, yet in Bodhidharma's spirit, praise can bind just as tightly, only with honey instead of thorns. When you begin to live on praise, your mind no longer stands on solid ground. It hangs suspended in the air of public approval. Today you're praised and you rise. Tomorrow, no one says anything and you feel strangely empty. The next day, a mild correction lands like a full rejection. Praise can feel like strength while quietly training dependence. He taught that praise and blame are two ends of the same rope. Hold one end and the other can drag you all the same. The practitioner in the world is not someone who hates praise, but someone who doesn't need it to stand upright. Value that lives outside your own hands will always be fragile. One compliment can lift you too high. One harsh word can drop you too low. But when you see your own worth clearly, other people's words return to what they truly are, passing weather. So when praise comes, receive it with gratitude, but don't bring it home and build your identity on it. Let it remain a kind intention, not a measuring stick. Real worth rests in how you live, how you work, how you treat others when no one is watching, not in a few sounds that rise and fade. And when blame comes, remember this: the words themselves have no power to sentence you. Power appears only when you hand it over, when you turn a comment into a verdict, and let one short line replace the long, complex truth of your whole life. Bodhidharma taught that criticism may be right or wrong, but what matters more is whether your mind clings to it. If it is right, take it as a signal to correct what needs correcting. Then let it go. Do not keep punishing yourself after the lesson is learned. If it is wrong, recognize it, refuse to take it in, and move on. Yet many people fail at both. They neither repair fully nor release completely, and that half grip is what exhausts the heart. A common mistake is to take criticism about one action and stamp it onto the whole self. One imperfect moment becomes, I am worthless. One small correction becomes, everything about me is wrong. Bodhidharma called this the deluded mind that exaggerates, turning a single dot into a dark painting, then living inside the picture it created. Criticism is like a mirror. When the mirror is clear, it shows what to adjust. When the mirror is warped, the reflection lies. The awake person does not smash the mirror and does not worship it either. They look, then verify with their own observation. What exactly is being pointed out? Is there evidence? Does it help me live better? If yes, accept. If not, leave it. Many people react the instant they hear a harsh word, either arguing back or swallowing it in silence. But both reactions come from the same root, a mind that has already been pushed off-center. Bodhidharma did not teach you to win with words or to endure like a stone. He taught you to see. See the surge in need, hurt, fear of judgment, the need to be understood. When you see clearly, the reaction weakens. And when the reaction weakens, criticism loses its weight. Some carry criticism home, lay it on the bed, set it at the dinner table, place it inside their sleep. They replay the tone, the face, the sentence, while the speaker often forgot it long ago. Bodhidharma warned that binding yourself with other people's words is a quiet kind of suffering. Criticism only becomes a blade when you believe it defines your worth. When you know where you are going and what you live for, it touches the surface but cannot sink in, like wind passing through a tree with deep roots. The branches may sway, but the trunk remains. And here is the harder truth. Another person's words become dangerous only where you already have a tender spot. Words do not ignite by themselves. They are just a spark. What decides the fire is the pile of wood already stored in the mind, unseen cravings and fears, the hunger for praise, the need for approval, the desire to be seen as right, the terror of being judged as less. A small criticism hurts so sharply, not always because it is true, but because it hits the old fear of I am not enough. A compliment feels intoxicating, not because it is priceless, but because you have not yet learned to recognize your own value without borrowing it from someone else. Bodhidharma once pointed to something subtle that many people live a lifetime without seeing. If you don't want to be burned, don't blame the spark. Look instead at the pile of dry wood in your own heart, those unexamined cravings for comfort, support, approval. When these cravings stay hidden, we easily resent the world and accuse people's mouths of being cruel. Yet the more we resent, the drier the wood becomes, and the quicker the fire catches. There is a quiet kind of suffering, living as if you're always waiting to hear what others will say about you. After finishing a task, instead of asking, "Did I act with a clean conscience?" you ask, "Are they satisfied?" You rest and feel guilty for fear of being called lazy. You laugh and hold back for fear of being judged carefree. The mind stays taut like a string, simply because it gives too much meaning to outside voices. Bodhidharma called this a mind with no root, borrowing other people's words just to stand. A rooted mind is not arrogance, it is self-understanding. You know what you live for, where your value truly sits, and which path is yours. Slow or fast, it still fits your karma and circumstance. Many kind-hearted people suffer the most because they fear disappointing others. One remark lands, and they immediately turn inward to accuse themselves. But Bodhidharma did not teach us to erase emotion. He taught us to look straight at it. Why does this hurt so much? Is it because it's true, or because it touched an old fear that was never healed? When awareness shines on the feeling, the wood begins to moisten, and when the wood is damp, the fire goes out on its own. There is something light, yet deep here. When you no longer need other people's words to confirm your worth, their words lose their power. Praise won't lift you into the air. Criticism won't collapse you to the ground. Practice is not escaping life. It is strengthening the heart from within, with honesty, with understanding, with the courage to face the weak spots, the cravings, the fears hiding underneath. When these are seen clearly, outside speech has no soil to take root. You stop rushing to explain, stop hurrying to prove, stop carrying strangers' sentences home to replay all night. And this is why an ordinary day can suddenly turn heavy from one casual line. Not because the line was poisonous, but because it fell when the mind was tired, when the inner door was wide open. Bodhidharma reminded us, the mind is originally clear. Clear does not mean it never hears. It means it hears without becoming disturbed. When the mind is unsteady, one sentence can shake everything. When the mind has roots, 100 sentences are only noise beyond the fence. He saw this in everyday life. A gentle woman who spent her years caring for family, not rich but peaceful. At a family gathering, someone lightly remarked, "Living like that without thinking of yourself, later you'll suffer." No one meant harm, yet the words stayed, not in the ear, but in the chest. From that day, everything she did carried a fog of doubt. Caring for her child felt like overindulgence. Supporting her husband felt like unhealthy sacrifice. Nothing in the family changed. Only her mind did, because one sentence was never brought into the light. Bodhidharma did not blame the speaker, who often doesn't know what they've planted. And he did not blame the listener, who is simply running on old habits. He only pointed out this: when the heart keeps its doors open without discernment, any word can enter and become a long-term guest, and every guest consumes your life force. You come home tired, not because work is unfinished, but because a single sentence keeps looping, gaining new tones, new meanings, a whole drama you added yourself. The speaker has long forgotten. You are the one still living with it. This, he said, is a mind led by external conditions. The body is at home, but the mind is still standing in the place where that sentence was spoken. You eat while arguing in your head. You lie down while cross-examining yourself. It isn't weakness. It is simply that you haven't learned when to close the door. Closing the door is not hardening the heart. It is choosing. Not every word deserves an opening. Not every knock deserves an answer. Bodhidharma pointed to something subtle that many people live their whole lives without seeing. Hearing is one thing, but keeping is another. When a word passes through the ear and you don't store it, it dissolves on its own. When you keep it, the mind begins to carry a burden. One clear sign that a sentence has stayed too long is when you start living differently just to avoid being talked about again. Avoiding honesty, avoiding rest, avoiding the very thing you believe is right. At that point, speech is no longer sound. It has become an invisible string pulling your behavior. Bodhidharma did not teach coldness. He taught wakefulness, knowing when to open the inner door and when to close it. Words that make you clearer can be kept. Words that only make you more scattered can be returned to the wind. No need to argue, no need to explain. Simply don't give them a place to lodge. When you learn this, ordinary days return. People still praise and blame, but your mind is no longer dragged along. One sentence can't overturn an entire day. And from those ordinary days, real steadiness quietly grows back. There is a fragile boundary many miss, the line between hearing someone's words and letting those words become your own inner voice. While they remain outside, they are just noise. But once they enter, repeat themselves, and begin to think and judge on your behalf, the original speaker no longer matters. You become the one continuing your own suffering. Bodhidharma saw that the deepest pain often doesn't come from a new remark, but from old sentences that were never brought into the light. Words heard in childhood, in a moment of rejection, in a comparison that sank too deep. The world changes, the people forget, yet the echo stays, surfacing whenever you try something new. Before you even begin, the old voice appears. You're not good enough. You'll fail. You rest for a moment, and guilt rises. You haven't earned it. You receive praise, and still can't fully breathe, because another whisper follows. Don't trust it. Soon they'll criticize you. These voices feel like your own thoughts, but they are often just the leftover resonance of the past. Bodhidharma called this living through deluded thought, seeds planted by words, watered by repetition, and strengthened by unexamined belief. Imagine a gentle man who grew up being called slow and not sharp. As an adult, no one says it anymore, yet when opportunity appears, he hesitates. Not because he lacks ability, but because a familiar sentence rises like a law inside him. This isn't for you. The danger, Bodhidharma warned, is when we can no longer tell the difference between the voice of wisdom and the echo of old wounds. When we mistake the echo for truth, we limit ourselves without anyone needing to stop us. No one forbids us, yet we don't dare. No one criticizes us, yet we condemn ourselves first. And there is a quieter kind of suffering, speaking to yourself in a harsh voice. Those who have absorbed blame from outside often learn to treat themselves the same way. One small mistake, and they scold themselves. One short rest, and they call themselves useless. One failure, and they brand their whole being as unworthy. The inner voice stops being gentle and becomes the strictest guard. Bodhidharma's way is to notice, this is not me. This is an echo, and what is seen clearly begins to lose its power. Bodhidharma once pointed to something subtle that many people live their whole lives without seeing. The same words can land very differently, One person hears them and lets them fall away. Another carries them home, presses them to the chest, and hurts a little more each day. It is not that speech is stronger for one and weaker for another. It is that our way of listening is different. Some hear like water brushing the hand, cool, then gone. Others hear like a thorn in the heart. The more they move, the deeper it goes. Bodhidharma did not teach us to suppress that inner voice. He taught us to recognize it. When the familiar voice rises, harsh, judging, fearful, pause and look. Where is it coming from? Is it the truth of what is happening now, or an old sentence repeating itself in a new scene? When you can see it clearly, it begins to lose its grip, not because you argued with it, but because you no longer confuse it with who you are. These voices become me slowly, over years. Loosening them also takes time. Each time you notice, gently remind yourself, this is only a thought, not the whole of me, not an absolute truth. As the inner machinery becomes visible, choice returns. Before, the moment that voice appeared, we believed it and obeyed. Now we can stop for a breath and decide, listen or not, continue or pause, soften or tighten. The choice is small, but it is the seed of inner freedom. Cultivation in daily life is not about making the mind blank. It is about making the heart bright enough to see what is moving within. When seeing grows steady, we condemn ourselves less, we move more lightly, and peace finally has room to rest. There is also a painful paradox. We often endure the words of strangers, yet collapse under the words closest to us. A casual rumor, a half-true comment, a "someone said" can quietly crack trust between people without any clear malice. Bodhidharma saw how speech can disturb not only one mind, but whole relationships. Because suspicion, once planted, changes the way eyes look, voices sound, questions form. Couples begin to read everything through doubt. Parents begin to measure their children by outsiders' opinions. Friends drift apart without ever speaking directly. What breaks the bond is not always the truth, but the unexamined story. So he urged a different strength. Hear, but do not let words take the driver's seat. Let speech stop at the ear unless it has earned its way deeper through truth, kindness, and direct experience. In relationships, do not let second-hand talk replace honest listening. Do not let speculation outrank what you have actually seen. When the mind is grounded, rumors do not find fertile soil. And when the heart is kept clear, words return to what they truly are, passing wind, not destiny. Bodhidharma pointed to something subtle that many people miss. He never asked us to blindly trust others, only to stay awake in the presence of words. Speech always carries the mood of the speaker. An anxious person spreads anxiety. A jealous person leaks jealousy. If we don't discern, we end up swallowing not just a sentence, but the speaker's inner weather, and then mistake it for our own. Many people grow heavy because they live on second-hand sound. They hear what someone says about their spouse, their child, their family, then bring it home, set it on the dinner table, lay it beside their sleep. Slowly, relationships stop being nourished by direct presence and become ruled by outside commentary. Bodhidharma would call this drifting from reality. Reality is what you directly see, hear, and experience. When you return to it, watching actions, listening to the person in front of you, words from the crowd lose their spell. There is a more dangerous stage, though, when no one is speaking anymore, yet a voice keeps talking inside you. It judges, compares, scolds, urges. It doesn't come from the present. It's an echo from long ago. When words become an inner voice, the original speaker no longer matters. You become the one who keeps hurting yourself. Bodhidharma saw this clearly. Clinging is not only attachment to outer sound, but letting it sink into the mind and run itself as a habit. Someone who grew up hearing, "You're slow, you're not sharp," may one day face a new opportunity and instantly hear that old line inside, "You're not good enough, don't even try." No one blocks them, no one insults them now. Yet the borrowed voice builds an invisible fence. This is delusion within delusion. First believing another's words, then taking them as the truth of who you are. From there, people live inside limits they didn't choose, afraid to try, afraid to fail, afraid to live differently. Bodhidharma didn't teach suppression, he taught recognition. When that harsh inner voice rises, don't obey it automatically. Pause and look. Ask, where did this voice come from? Is it describing what's real right now, or replaying an old tape in a new room? Simply seeing its origin weakens its authority. You don't have to argue with it or prove it wrong, just stop identifying with it. Ah, this is the old voice. Letting go doesn't mean erasing the past. It means not allowing the past to command the present. When old words no longer define you, life becomes lighter, not because you become careless, but because you become honest. You can be imperfect without self-conviction, slow without self-hatred, unfinished without shame. For the first time, you begin to live from direct experience, not borrowed standards. And that quiet shift is the beginning of real inner freedom. Bodhidharma wanted a practitioner in the middle of life to go further than merely hearing without clinging. He pointed to something deeper, recognizing and slowly untying the cords that old words have tightened inside the heart for years. When those knots loosen, suffering doesn't just decrease. Real freedom appears. Freedom from the invisible voices that once steered an entire life without us even noticing. There was a time when the world's mouth was something you met only after stepping outside. Now it sits neatly in your pocket. Open your phone and hundreds of voices are already waiting. Praise and blame, comparison and judgment. Even when you never asked, the words still arrive. Even when you don't need them, they still spill in. And if the mind is not awake, it easily becomes restless because humans have never had to listen to so much, so constantly. Bodhidharma taught that what exhausts people is not merely the amount of work they must do, but the amount of noise they must carry. Social media turns scattered voices into a continuous stream, leaving the mind no quiet interval. You finish one task and immediately see another person displaying theirs. You slow down one beat and watch someone get ahead. You rest for a moment and feel as if you're falling behind. No one directly says you are lacking, yet the mind learns to interpret it that way. One of the most dangerous words online is comparison. People don't call you incompetent, they showcase their competence. They don't say you're poor, they display abundance. They don't say you're slow, they celebrate speed. These posts target no one in particular, yet they quietly build an invisible standard. And once that standard is repeated enough, you begin measuring your life with someone else's ruler. That is living by external conditions. Today you see another's success and grow impatient. Tomorrow you see another's happiness and feel hollow. The next day you see another's milestones and start counting your own. Many people scroll each morning out of habit and feel heavier with every minute. It isn't always because the content is cruel, but because the mind wasn't ready. When the mind is fragile, every beautiful image becomes a reminder that you're not enough. Every success story becomes a silent accusation that you're too late. And after the mind learns this reflex, even when the phone is off, the echoes keep speaking inside. Bodhidharma did not teach escape from the modern world. He taught using it with awareness, just as with spoken words in daily life. Online words become harmful only when you grant them the authority to define you. When you forget that what people post is a chosen slice, not a whole life. And it matters to see this. Social media doesn't only transmit other people's voices, it also amplifies your own inner voice. If you already tend to blame yourself, you will blame yourself louder. If you already compare, you will compare more. If you already lack confidence, you will be wounded more easily. Not because the world is always malicious, but because it enlarges what was already waiting in the mind. Bodhidharma pointed to something quietly profound. To practice in the middle of life is to guard the gate of the mind. Not everyone should be allowed to come and go as they please, and not every sentence deserves to become a long-term guest. When you learn to keep that door, the inner world begins to settle. And only when the mind is settled can you truly hear what is useful and what is merely noise. If words wound you easily, don't rush to call yourself weak. It may simply mean you haven't yet learned how to listen well. Try something small. When a comment shakes you, don't answer right away. Pause for a single breath, look directly at the feeling, and ask whether this is something you truly need to carry. If not, let it fall away, like water slipping from your hands, like wind passing a porch and moving on. Many people think only criticism hurts, but in Bodhidharma's spirit, praise can bind just as tightly, only with honey instead of thorns. When you begin living on praise, your footing leaves the ground and hangs in midair, suspended by public opinion. Today you're lifted by approval. Tomorrow, silence feels like rejection. Praise turns subtle dependence into habit until you work to be applauded, speak to be liked, and live waiting for confirmation. He taught that praise and blame are two ends of the same rope. Clutch one end and the other will pull you. If blame is true, take it as a signal. Correct what needs correcting, then release it. If it's false, recognize it and refuse to adopt it. The real exhaustion comes from doing neither fully, not improving with clarity, and not letting go with finality. So the mind carries a half-finished burden. There is also a thin line many people never notice. The line between hearing someone's words and letting those words become your own inner voice. When words remain outside, they are just sound. When they move inside, repeat, and start judging in your place, the original speaker no longer matters, because you have become the one continuing the harm. Bodhidharma didn't tell you to suppress that voice. He told you to recognize it, see its origin, name it as an old echo rather than a final truth, and slowly the mind regains its right to choose, whether to believe, whether to follow, whether to continue. In an age of constant noise, especially online, this matters even more. Mental hygiene, he would say, is like eating. Not everything should be taken in. Choose what you watch, what you read, what you let linger. Remember that your life does not happen on a screen. It happens in ordinary human moments. A calm meal, a deep sleep, a slow afternoon, a real conversation. When you live close to what is real, words lose their spell, and standing still in a loud era becomes its own quiet form of wisdom. Bodhidharma taught that when the mind is unsettled, return to what is real, not to other people, but to yourself. Ask gently, does my body need rest today? Does my heart need quiet? Is what I'm doing suited to my strength right now? When you can come back to those simple truths, outside words naturally lose their weight. Not because the world grows quieter, but because you finally have somewhere to stand. Many people only discover then how far they've been living from their own pace. Rushing, forcing, fearing they'll be called slow or less than, until they dare to slow down, and in that permission, feel lightness return. Bodhidharma called this returning to the root. The root is not found in praise or blame, but in wakefulness. With a root, you don't need constant validation to know whether you're living rightly. You don't need anyone to announce whether you are enough. Enough becomes the harmony between your body, your mind, and the life directly in front of you. And when you live closer to your own truth, something quiet changes. You stop obsessing over what others say, not from coldness, but because you no longer borrow words to define who you are. Words become passing sounds, while your real life unfolds clearly in each breath, each step, each small act of the day. Many relationships don't break from one dramatic event, but crack slowly from a few untested words that slip into the heart. Those words may be guesses, moods, or half-jokes from outsiders, yet once carried home, they begin to breed suspicion, distance, and chill, until one day the gap is too wide to cross. Bodhidharma pointed out that as long as the mind clings to hearsay, love cannot stay whole, because love depends on trust and direct listening. Often we think we suffer because people speak wrongly about us. But much suffering comes from believing too quickly what is said about others. A couple may live peacefully for years, not dazzling but steady, until outside comments start to seep in. Something heard somewhere, something probably true. At first, it's only information. Later, it becomes a lens. Small gestures get examined under suspicion. Questions turn into interrogation, and listening is replaced by silent interpretation. Bodhidharma described it simply. When one thought of doubt arises, 100 uneases follow. Doubt doesn't always come from facts. It often comes from words that were never brought into the light. Friendships can end the same way. One rumor of betrayal, no honest conversation, only a shifting tone and guarded eyes. Until the bond collapses under a story that was never confirmed. Between parents and children, this wound can deepen even faster. A parent hears that a child who visits less is unfilial, and the heart grows heavy. Phone calls become occasions for comparison and reproach. The child grows tired, not from lack of love, but from the weight that every contact now carries. Bodhidharma wouldn't blame either side. He would only remind us that if we place a relationship's peace in the hands of outside talk, one sentence can shake it. Return to what you directly know, the care that still exists, the realities of each life, the truth that can only be seen up close. And among relatives, clinging is more dangerous still, because words travel with gossip. Each retelling adds a little, twists a little, blurs a little. By the time the story reaches the person at its center, it may no longer resemble the original truth. Yet the listener, unaware of the distortion, feels wounded, betrayed, diminished, and distance forms. Bodhidharma's medicine is not to seal your ears, but to keep your mind from fastening onto what has not been seen, not been verified, not been spoken face to face. When the mind learns to return to reality, many rifts never get the chance to grow. Bodhidharma taught that a wise person does not rush to conclusions before conditions are fully clear. Listen, yes, but pause, observe, and test what you hear against reality. Listen to the people involved. Listen to your own felt sense. As long as you believe too quickly, you suffer too quickly. When you learn to pause, many misunderstandings dissolve on their own. So many relationships don't break because love disappears, but because trust quietly erodes. And often it erodes not from actions, but from outside voices. A rumor, an unverified remark, a story colored by someone else's emotions. When we cling to such words, we end up destroying with our own hands what we have never directly seen to be broken. Bodhidharma didn't teach us to block our ears from the world. He taught us to keep the mind clear enough to remember that words do not always carry truth. With a clear mind, we stop dragging unexamined talk into our marriage, our family, our friendships. We protect tenderness in kinship, steadiness in partnership, warmth at home, not by controlling what others say, but by refusing to let borrowed opinions steer how we treat the people we love. When we stop letting outsiders narrate our intimacy, relationships return to their rightful place. Imperfect, but real. Quiet, but alive. Bodhidharma also pointed out a common misunderstanding. Letting go of attachment to words is not escapism, and it is not indifference to right and wrong. It is inner maturity, the ability to hear without being dragged. When the mind is still young, it reacts automatically. Praise lifts it, criticism sinks it, advice irritates it, judgment makes it shrink. Maturity creates a small gap between what is said and what is received. That gap is the doorway to freedom. Without it, words rush straight into the heart and take the wheel. With it, words become information, something you can use, refine, or release. Many people fear that not clinging will make them weak, but the opposite is true. The one who doesn't cling often stands firmer. They don't need to argue, perform, or prove. They live from a rooted place. Rooted not in what people say, but in how deeply they understand themselves. A clear sign of this rooting is that a person explains less. Not out of coldness, but out of clarity. Some people listen only to judge, not to understand, and explaining to them is just another way to bleed energy. Instead, they let life answer. Bodhidharma called this a quiet strength, transforming without excessive speech, letting truth reveal itself through time. To release attachment to words is also to release the hunger to be defined. You no longer need labels, good or bad, successful or failed, to feel real. You work because it's meaningful, rest because you're tired, help because you care, stop because you're full. And slowly, you step out of the exhausting life built from other people's expectations, returning to a life that fits your own causes, your own pace, your own way of being enough. Bodhidharma often pointed to something subtle that many people miss for a lifetime. The same words can land very differently. One person hears them and lets them pass. Another carries them home, presses them to the chest, and quietly bleeds from them each day. It is not that speech is stronger for one and weaker for another. It is that the art of listening is different. Some listen like water touching the hand, cool and gone. Others listen like a thorn in the heart, hurting more with every movement. He taught that hearing is one thing, holding is another. When words stop at the ear, they remain sound. When they sink into the mind, they gain authority over mood, over choices, sometimes over an entire view of life. A single comment becomes a loop. First you hear it, then you replay it, then you expand it, until you are no longer living with the event, but with the sentence about the event. That is how a small spark becomes a long burning fire. Bodhidharma's counsel was not to blame the spark, but to look at the dry wood inside. Why do certain words cling so tightly? Often because they touch an old fear of not being enough, of being left, of being judged. The words are only the trigger. The explosive has been waiting in the heart for a long time. When you see that clearly, you stop trying to fix other people's mouths and begin strengthening your own inner ground. So the practice begins with a pause. Not a dramatic retreat, just one beat of stillness between the word and your reaction. Breathe in slowly, breathe out slowly, and name what rises: sadness, anger, shame, the fear of being measured. When you can name it, the word loses weight, not because you argued it down, but because you no longer mistake it for truth. This is an old echo, you remind yourself, not the whole of who I am. And as your roots deepen, praise and blame become what they always were: wind. Praise can bind as tightly as criticism, only with honey instead of thorns. If you need applause to stand, silence will feel like rejection. If you fear disapproval, even gentle feedback will sting. Bodhidharma's freedom is simpler and sturdier. Receive what helps you grow. Release what only stirs the mind. Let the useful remain as guidance, and let the rest return to the air, so your life keeps its own rhythm, not the rhythm set by someone else's tongue. As Bodhidharma taught, hearing is one thing, holding on is another. When you hear a remark and don't keep it, it dissolves on its own. When you hear it and store it, the mind begins to carry a weight. A clear sign that words have stayed too long is when you start living differently just to avoid being talked about again. Avoiding rest, avoiding honesty, avoiding what you know is right. Then words stop being sound and become an invisible leash. He didn't teach coldness. He taught clarity. Some words should be opened like a door, some should be left outside. What helps you grow, keep. What only stirs confusion, return to the wind. No arguing, no explaining, simply not allowing it to settle. With practice, ordinary days come back. Praise and blame still exist, but they no longer steal your whole day. The world doesn't get quieter. You simply stop being dragged. Bodhidharma also warned of a thin line. Words spoken by others versus the voice that starts speaking inside you. When words remain outside, they are just noise. But when they enter, repeat, and slowly begin to think in your place, judging, comparing, condemning, then the original speaker no longer matters. You become the one continuing the harm. Many of the most painful voices are old ones, echoes from childhood, from being compared, dismissed, or shamed, long after the moment has passed. He didn't say to crush that inner voice. He said to recognize it. When it arises, pause and look. Is this the truth of what's happening now, or a familiar sentence replaying in a new scene? The moment you see it clearly, it weakens, not because you defeated it, but because you no longer confuse it with who you are. Little by little, you regain choice to continue, to rest, to try, to fail without self-punishment. And that is the quiet freedom he pointed toward, living among many voices, yet keeping a still place inside that remains your own. Bodhidharma often pointed to something simple, yet easily overlooked. In the second half of life, we must learn to listen less to the noise outside and more to what is true inside. Listen to what the body is asking for. Listen to whether the heart is tired or at peace. Listen for what helps you live longer and deeper, not what makes you look right in someone else's eyes. Many people spend a lifetime obeying old commands. Be strong, endure, don't be weak, only to discover, when the body is worn and the spirit thinned, that what once helped them go far can also break them if carried forever. He did not deny the value of effort. He only reminded us that there comes a time to stop at the right place. Stopping is not giving up. It is knowing what is enough. It is refusing to use other people's words as a whip on your own back every day. It is allowing yourself to move more slowly, prove less, compare less. When you learn to stop in this way, the later years become a different stretch of road. Less running, less dodging, less straining to hold an image together. A quiet truth reveals itself after enough fatigue. You do not need someone to declare you right for life to be calm. You do not need constant recognition to have worth. Your worth is already where you are. Can you sleep well? Can you eat with ease? Can you laugh without acting? When those things return, outside voices naturally shrink. Bodhidharma called this returning. Returning to a pace that fits your strength, to joys that require no witness, to the ordinary life you once dismissed while chasing applause. When the grip loosens, life becomes strangely simple. You explain less, defend less, keep fewer accounts. What you can do, you do. What no longer suits you, you set down. Those who understand, you cherish. Those who don't, you no longer wrestle. Not because you are cold, but because you see that not every connection is meant to be held. Bodhidharma taught that when the mind no longer begs to be spoken well of, praise loses its spell. When the mind no longer fears being spoken ill of, the world's mouth loses its power. This freedom doesn't come from resisting people. It comes from laying things down. The need to be defined, the fear of being judged, the habit of living by what you overhear rather than what you actually live. If you carry too many words into the later years, life grows heavy. But if you dare to set them down, bit by bit, life lightens quickly. Not because everything turns perfect, but because you stop adding extra suffering. And there is a state Bodhidharma called a mind with roots. When the mind has roots, words no longer rule. Not because people speak less, but because you finally have a place to stand. Then even strong winds only pass through. A rooted mind knows what it is living for, not to outperform, not to impress, but to keep to the basics. Eat enough, sleep in peace, work within your limits, love others without abandoning yourself. When these become your axis, the world's talk becomes only weather, and your life returns to its own rhythm. Bodhidharma taught that a person without roots lives by reaction. One remark and the heart sways. One judgment and the path changes. But a person with roots lives by choice, choosing what to hear, what to believe, what to keep, and what to release. Not because they are cleverer, but because they have answered the most important questions for themselves. Many people are exhausted because they don't know what they truly want, so other people's voices easily replace their own. Someone says this direction is right, so they go. Someone mocks that direction as wrong, so they turn back, until one day they can't recognize which road was ever theirs. To have roots is also to accept responsibility, without blaming the speaker, without resenting the words. Because whether you listen, whether you believe, whether you carry it home or leave it at the door, these are your choices. Bodhidharma reminded that someone who has roots doesn't rush to defend themselves when misunderstood, and doesn't rush to float away when praised. They observe. They let time and their actions speak. Competing through words only tires the mind. It rarely improves the life. When the mind has roots, a quiet transformation appears. You speak less, yet your words carry more weight. You no longer speak to protect an image or to prove your worth, but only when it is needed. And you can be silent when silence is wiser. That silence isn't avoidance, it is steadiness. Bodhidharma called this teaching without words, not as a pose, but as inner strength. No arguing, no clinging, yet truth gradually reveals itself. Roots also help you separate what needs improvement from what must simply be accepted. When feedback is true, you adjust, then you let it go without punishing yourself. When judgment is false, you leave it behind without scrambling to convince everyone. You stop trying to please the whole world and start living upright with what you have chosen. You realize each person has their own rhythm. Yours may not be fast, but if it is steady, it can still go far. So the noise about speed, rankings, and comparisons begins to lose its grip. Looking back, most of our suffering wasn't caused by words themselves, but by how long we held them inside. Bodhidharma never told people to fight speech or flee the world. He pointed to something quieter and deeper. Learn to come back and govern your own mind. When the mind has no roots, any wind can drag it away. When the mind has roots, words are only sound, arriving, passing, and dissolving. The world may keep talking, and public opinion may never rest. But if, after reading this, you can pause when a sentence shakes you, breathe a little slower, look closely at what is rising in you, and ask gently, does this truly need to stay? Then you are no longer being pulled without knowing it. Peace does not depend on the world becoming quieter. Peace begins the moment your mind learns how to stand still. When the mind stands still, words lose their power. When the mind has roots, life softens, and what remains is not numbness, but freedom.